In this video, we're going to go through all of the parts that you're going to need to know for the STEM Fair board. The first part is the title. The title is going to go in the top middle part of the STEM Fair board, and all you need to know is that it's going to be different than the question. You can come up with whatever title you want, just make sure it's not your question. Your question is going to go in the top left, which is different than your title. So your question, it's got to be something you can investigate. It's got to be something that you can actually put to the test and see what happens, see if you can figure out the answer to the question. Okay, you're going to want to change one thing to see how it affects another. So let's get some examples. Does the weight of an object affect how quickly it falls? All right, if this is something I can investigate. I can change the weight of an object and see if that affects how quickly it falls. I get several objects, one that's light, one that's a little, medium weight, and then one that's heavy. I'm changing one thing, the weight of the object, to see how quickly it falls. Another example could be, which brand of phone chargers replenishes the most battery life after 10 minutes? So I'm changing the brand of phone chargers to see if it's affecting how quickly it'll charge after 10 minutes. You're changing one thing to see how it affects another thing. Your hypothesis is going to go underneath your question. Your hypothesis is simply what you think the answer is to your question before you do the investigation. Please do not change your hypothesis after you find the correct answer. It's okay if your hypothesis was wrong. You have to write your hypothesis as, I think, blah, 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 because blah, blah, blah. I think heavy objects fall faster because, I gotta say why, because gravity will pull down on the weight. I think the iPhone wireless charger will replenish the most battery life after 10 minutes because things that are wireless move quickly. They might not have a good reason. Whatever your reason is, you just gotta make sure you say, I think, and then because. It has to be written this way. Underneath your hypothesis will be your materials. For the materials, you're simply going to list everything that you'd use, and it must be written in a list format. Make sure that when you list your materials, you use the metric system, okay? So instead of instead of inches or feet, you would use centimeters or meters. Instead of pounds, you would use grams. Instead of ounces, you would use liters or milliliters. The variables go in the middle underneath where the title would be. Now, the variables are what's tricky and what gives students the most problems, so pay close attention to this part of the video. The first variable that you're going to have is your independent variable. The independent variable is what is it you're changing? What's changing between each of your experiments, each of your investigations? Let's look at the example of our first question for the weight of an object. The thing we were changing was the weight of the object. We were seeing if that was going to affect how quickly it falls. We're changing the weight of each object, so that would be our independent variable. For the phone charger example, we were changing the type of phone charger. Okay, so that's what your independent variable is. What is it that you're changing from each experiment? Next is the dependent variable. Your dependent variable is going to be what you measure in your experiment or your investigation. What is it that you're observing? What is it that you're looking for? I'm measuring the time it takes for the object to fall. For the phone example, I'm measuring the amount of battery that was replenished after 10 minutes. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking to see how much battery life was recovered after 10 minutes. Now, your dependent variable is called your dependent variable because it's going to depend on your independent variable. The time it takes for the object to fall is going to depend on the weight of the object. The amount of battery life that's replenished or recovered is going to depend on the type of phone charger that I'm using. The last variable that you're going to be looking for is your control variable, or should I say control variables, because there may be more than one. It's what you keep the same in each experiment. The reason why you're keeping it the same is so that your experiment stays fair. And like I said, there may be more than one. So for the first example, with the weight of the object, you might decide, hey, it's important that we keep the size of the object the same. We're only changing the weight. We want to make sure the size of each object is the same. So if I got a light object and then a medium object and then a heavy object, they should all be the same size, just a different weight. You may also want to make sure that the shape of the object is the same, just in case that affects it. You don't want to drop the first one and it's in a shape of a cube, and then the second object is in the shape of a sphere. So an example of how you could do this is, if you want to change the weight but not the size and the shape, you can get a light bowling ball, a medium bowling ball, and a heavy bowling ball, but they all should be the same size and shape, just different weights. With the example with the phone charger, You might decide the phone that's being charged has to be the same each time. It wouldn't be fair if the first time I charged, I was using an iPhone, and then the second time I used a Samsung phone. Because what if iPhones charge faster than Samsung phones? You may want to start from the same starting point. So the first time you do it, if you start your phone at 50% and you're seeing how much it charges in 10 minutes, the second time you do it, start from 50% again. Your procedures are going to go underneath your variables. It's simply you just write down step by step what you did. It has to be in a list format. If someone were reading your procedures, it should be clear enough that if they followed it step by step, they would do the exact same investigation as you. Your data is going to go in the top right part of the board. Your data is you're going to record what happened. So that can look like a chart, a table, you might have a graph, you might have pictures, you can have a combination of a few things. However you decide to record your data. After your data is going to come your results. Your results are simply going to be 1 or 2 sentences stating what happened. For example, I could say, the Samsung wired charger replenished the most battery life in 10 minutes. Boom, that's it. That's what happened. I don't need to say anything else. Last but not least on your STEMFAIR board is your conclusion. Your conclusion is going to state whether your hypothesis was correct or not. You don't get bonus points if your hypothesis was correct, so you don't need to change your hypothesis. Keep it the way it was before you started your investigation. Share whether your hypothesis was correct or not, and then explain anything that you learned. You can talk about why you think the results happened. You can say what you noticed when you were doing your experiment. Whatever it is that you want to include here, you're explaining your work. What happened? What did you learn?